Friends, apparently it's now time to say goodbye, because this happens to be our last and final lecture. And we have been moving around all over the world. We have looked at UK and USA, at France and Japan, closer home, at our own country, also India, trying to compare the administrative systems, trying to compare the constitutions, attempting to compare the local governments, looking at the civil service structures and their peculiarities with a view to find out what are the best practices. And as we looked at all these countries, we found that all countries, as far as the bureaucracy was concerned, have moved towards a meritocracy, a merit-based system for induction of civil servants or public administrators. Whatever the form of government, the principle of getting people into the civil service on merit through a competitive exam has prevailed. And perhaps that is the best practice, one of the best practices we can talk about. But the real test of any civil service or a public administration system is, are you really looking after the people? Are you providing the services which the people need in an efficient manner? To what extent is the general populace frustrated or satisfied with the state of affairs in government offices? So the objective of all this analysis is to highlight this aspect, that it is the public, the end user, the client, the consumer, who should benefit from the services in a befitting manner. Maybe it is happening so in some democracies, some developed countries, much more than others. But what ingredients go into it is a different story. What are those elements? Cultural, historical, the whole ecological picture. What are those elements which transform an administrative system into one which is really serving the people? That's difficult to say. But definitely one thing can be said, that there is a lot of room for improvement as far as our country is concerned. We asked some questions right in the beginning, and the answer lies in an efficient, pro-people, pro-poor administrative system. Are structural reforms necessary, more structural reforms necessary? Has the mindset to change? Have the people to become more aggressive, more knowledgeable about their rights? What kind of pressures can be put on the bureaucracy to make it more responsive? Definitely, a lot needs to be done. And now, after having looked at some of the aspects and the basic generic causes and issues connected to comparative public administration. We had moved towards looking at length at a number of countries and their public administrative systems. And today we'll attempt to recapitulate whatever we had talked about before. So here's the scheme of things, a small table which is going to give us an idea about these different countries and to what extent and on what point, what term of reference they are closer to each other or not. So we have chosen a number of components for comparison. These elements range from constitutional aspects to recruitment aspects of the civil service and the empowerment of local government. And the countries, of course, you will remember are Great Britain, USA, France, Japan, a little bit about India and Pakistan in more detail. Over here we have talked about culture of two countries, USA and Great Britain, and found that more participative civic culture is present in USA, just one characteristic at the top. And the French system is a classic administrative system, especially so because we find this centralized, merit-based, strong, powerful bureaucracy, which is allowed to politicize, also working there. So some people call France an administrative state. The bureaucracy is so powerful. As such, it has been termed as a classic administrative, one of the classic administrative systems one can have. Japan, on the other hand, has those elements which help modernize it. And the whole administration system is geared towards modernizing, innovating, producing knowledge, becoming a knowledge economy. And hence, the emphasis on specialization too. India, calling it a mature democracy, of course, over the years, whatever kind of democracy it is, getting maturer. We are still developing as a democracy, having had breaks and stoppages as far as the democratic process is concerned. So we have termed ourselves a developing democracy. As far as the culture and its civic nature is concerned, one can guess for India and Pakistan, in both cases, I think it wouldn't be a very flattering kind of a culture. So first we look at the type of constitutions prevalent in this country, various countries. You saw Great Britain had an unwritten and hence a very flexible constitution. Of course, it has developed through tradition and statutes and conventions, the common law, etc. It is the oldest constitutional system of the world, and we have seen how over a period of time the monarchs were forced to give up power to the people. And although aristocracy is still very important over there, there might be an element of charisma or elegance with the aristocracy, but the power is now squarely in the hands of the people. In the USA, again, a very rigid constitution, a written constitution. It is the oldest written constitution we saw, and a very rigid one, because you need 2/3 of a majority of both the houses to be able to pass an amendment. Amendments have been passed. We know about the 28th Amendment, 18th Amendment. So, France again, a rigid constitution. And the constitutions in France have been changing during the last few decades, century or so, every 12 years, from monarchic to aristocratic to republican, to democratic. Right now it's the fifth republic which gave us a constitution. And there is a lot of impact of the French Revolution on the constitution of the country. It safeguards liberties very, very vehemently. और इसी तरह जापान की जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो एक ज़माने में मोनार्किकल थी, मेजी रूलर्स के ज़माने में बहुत ऑथोरिटेरियन थी. अभी भी मोनार्की वहाँ है, लेकिन इस वक्त कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो है वो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव है. पार्लियामेंट प्रेजेंट है, डायट प्रेजेंट है वहाँ. और एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का है, जापानीज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का, दैट इज अबाउट रिनेंसिएशन ऑफ वॉर. तो हम फिर देखते हैं कि हिस्ट्री का कैसे इम्पैक्ट है. हालांकि इस किस्म की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में क्लॉजेस जो हैं, लोग कहते हैं कि अमेरिका ने वहाँ पे होते हुए सब कुछ फ्रेम किया, तो ये डलवा दी क्लॉज के जापान शुड नेवर राइज इट हेड अगेन. बट स्टिल दिस इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एंड कंट्रोवर्शियल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. इंडिया की जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वो भी रिटन है, वो भी रिजिड है, और उसमें जो टर्म्स इंडिया को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए लिखी गई हैं वो हैं अ सोवरेन सोशलिस्ट सेक्युलर डेमोक्रेटिक रिपब्लिक. ऑल द पॉजिटिव थिंग्स यू कैन थिंक ऑफ. और पाकिस्तान में हमारा हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड जो है वो रिफ्लेक्टेड है. हाउ वी गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस, how the Muslims wanted a state of their own and believed in the two-nation theory. So we are the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. हमारी constitution भी written or rigid है. So what about the nature of the state and the type of government? We'll first look at the nature of the state. Great Britain में unitary state है. लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स के पास काफ़ी पावर्स हैं, लेकिन दे आर डेलीगेटेड फ्रॉम द यूनिटरी गवर्नमेंट विच इज़ द सुप्रीम गवर्नमेंट, एंड दे कैन बी increased or decreased. But the local governments are doing a fantastic job in UK. यूएसए में हम देखते हैं कि इतने स्टेट्स हैं और इन स्टेट्स में रेजिडरी पावर्स हैं, वेस्टेड हैं जो हैं. काफ़ी पावर्स स्टेट्स के पास हैं, बहुत पावरफुल स्टेट्स हैं. फेडरल गवर्नमेंट की तो अपनी पावर्स हैं ही, लेकिन स्टेट्स को बहुत पावर्स दी गई हैं. और आगे जो सिस्टम नीचे लोकल गवर्नमेंट का है उसमें भी मेयर इज़ अ वेरी पावरफुल फिगर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल फ्रांस की हुकूमत भी यूनिटरी है, एंड ऑल पावर्स आर वेस्टेड इन द सिंगल सुप्रीम गवर्नमेंट. ये बहुत ही सेंट्रलाइज और यूनिटरी गवर्नमेंट है. यहाँ पे लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स को इतनी ज़्यादा पावर्स नहीं है जितनी कि ब्रिटेन में है, या यूके में है, या यूएस में है, या फॉर दैट मैटर इंडिया में है. एंड व्हेन वी लुक एट जापान, we find that it is a unitary state, a unitary system of government with the monarch at the top. It's a monarchy. So a lot of powers are with the Diet. That there is a monarchy, but primarily the monarchy is symbolic. Whereas the Parliament is powerful and it can diminish or increase the authority of the provincial governments. So the local setup is at the mercy of the Diet. Diet is extremely powerful. In India, of course, we already saw federal and republic. However, one characteristic of the state is that it tries to temper the rights of the minorities along with the majority rule. So there is a visible effort to try and protect the minorities, at least theoretically. And in Pakistan, the nature of state has undergone a bit of development during the last decade when a lot of powers from the federal government were transferred to the provincial governments. So the provincial governments now are much more powerful, dealing with more subjects than they were about a decade ago. And of course, it's a federation of 4 or 5 provinces, and it has, it's very much a republic. Representative government has been envisaged. Now the types of government in these various countries. Of course, the Westminster type of parliamentary democracy in the UK. The lower house Commons is very powerful. This is the mother of all democracies, so a lot of democratic traditions there. And one of the very interesting aspects is that of the shadow government, where each minister or head of a department, political person, has its equivalent in the opposition in the form of a shadow minister who would be expected to take up, would really have a good knowledge about his subject or her subject. And in case the other party, which is in the opposition, now comes into power, that person would be expected to take up that particular portfolio. But for the time being in opposition, as a shadow minister, they would criticize and try to contribute towards what the government is doing. In the USA, we saw that it was a presidential form of government. Senate was a very powerful house. We saw president is extremely powerful. But when it comes to appointments, all appointments, judiciary and key posts, they have to have the agreement of the Senate. The Senate may go in and its subcommittees may hear those people, may question those people, may have sessions with those people who are being appointed, and then decide. But no appointments, no key appointments can be made without the green signal from the Senate. So this also fits in with the concepts of checks and balances between the various organs of the state. That is the judiciary and the legislature and the executive. And now we see executive here being checked and balanced by the Senate, by the upper house of the legislature. And of course, the judiciary comes in with its powers of judicial review to create more checks and balances, even on the legislature. by declaring laws to be unconstitutional if they happen to be so. In Japan, it is again a parliamentary system, and the emperor or the monarch is just the executive, the ceremonial person. The real authority rests in the cabinet. That is the most powerful organ of the state. In India, we see Prime Minister is very powerful. The President does some appointments, some key appointments, but primarily it is the Prime Minister who's running the show all the time. Pakistan also right now, Prime Minister is the real executive. Previously we have had a quasi-presidential kind of government during General Pervez Musharraf's rule. And now after the latest amendment, the powers have come back to the Prime Minister, who now happens to be the real chief executive with all the powers that are deemed in the Constitution. Now the type of legislature, of course bicameral in all the cases. In case of Great Britain, you have the House of Lords and the Commons, Commons being the more powerful house, where the Prime Minister is taken to task all the time. In US, we saw the Congress as the lower house and the Senate as the house, the Congress comprising of the lower house of representatives and the Senate as the upper house. And we saw Senate to be a very powerful house. Again, in France, there is a Senate and a National Assembly. Both combined make up the legislature of the country. In the Diet, you have a House of Councillors and an upper house, again bicameral. You have the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha in India, and we have a Senate and a National Assembly. So all the types of governments we looked at, whether they be parliamentary or quasi-presidential, as in the case of France, because the constitution there doesn't specify as to what kind of government would there be, so it's developed into a quasi-presidential kind of a setup. So whatever the form, the type of government, the legislature is bicameral in all these countries which we studied. And what about the kind of bureaucracy? It's Weberian in all cases. Weberian means that rational, legal type of bureaucracy. That bureaucracy based on a merit system. So the legal, rational type of bureaucracy which follows laws and where each person's sphere of powers and the kind of job he has to do is well defined, and there is a hierarchy and a career plan for the civil servants, and a bureaucracy in which the subordinate can, equipped with the law, if he is right about the interpretation of the law, he can take on his superior. So this Weberian model of bureaucracy is universal now. It is present in Great Britain, in USA, in France, in Japan, in India, and Pakistan. And then what is the machinery available for redressal of citizens' grievances? We see we have the Ombudsman in Pakistan. We have the Directorate of Public Grievances. In India, it is located in the Cabinet Division there. Interestingly, Japan and US have no such machinery. Great Britain has a parliamentary commissioner, and France has certain courts for the purpose, administrative courts. So, in case citizens feel aggrieved about the behavior of the bureaucracy, or they have been wronged, something has been done which was not in keeping with the law, their interests have not been taken into account. Whenever they feel wrong, they have a grievance against the bureaucracy. तो वो इन तमाम प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे जा सकते हैं जो हिंदुस्तान में भी है, पाकिस्तान में भी है और बाकी मुल्कों में भी है. लेकिन यूएस और जापान में ऐसी कोई खास आइडेंटिफाइड और डिवोटेड मशीनरी, डेडिकेटेड मशीनरी नहीं है इस पर्पस के लिए. Perhaps they don't need it much, because most of the time things move according to law and within a certain system, and everyone is happy. What about the autonomy of local governments? In France, no autonomy at all, one end of the spectrum. And US, on the other hand, a lot of autonomy. UK lies somewhere in between. In US, we saw that there were many models of local government. There was the weak mayor and the strong mayor, and then there was a system in which a professional specialist was running the affairs of the states, whereas the legislative body or the council of the local government entity was of course there. So we have a lot of models and variations in the US as far as local government is concerned. It's very much historical according to that community and also in keeping with the needs of that community. Although in Britain there is less autonomy than in the US, but the local government there does a lot of social work and allied things over there. And people trust the local government there, the municipality, most of the time. In France there is no autonomy. You have to do what the government says. The government in Paris is going to determine what you are supposed to do or not do. In Japan, you have more autonomy, like in the US. They have their prefectures and a whole system of very powerful elected representative set up. In India, there's more autonomy, and in Pakistan, the autonomy is coming now. Again, we talked about the devolution program in Pakistan. It started about a decade ago, a little more than a decade ago. And now the local governments are much more powerful than before. The Nazims of the Zilla Council or the Tehsil Council are supposed to be powerful people. If at any given time the local governments do exist. और जापान में हमने देख लिया, फ्रांस में, हाँ हिंदुस्तान में काफ़ी ऑटोनॉमी है. उन्होंने एक पूरा पंचायत का सिस्टम इंट्रोड्यूस किया हुआ है और ज़िला के लेवल पर भी, फिर नीचे गांव के लेवल से लेकर ज़िला के लेवल तक लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स इलेक्टेड हैं और काफ़ी पावरफुल हैं. फिर अब हम देखते हैं व्हाट आर द पॉलिटिकल राइट्स ऑफ द सिविल सर्वेंट्स इन दीज कंट्रीज. उससे बड़ा फर्क पड़ता है. उसके दो एस्पेक्ट्स हैं. एक तो ये कि आप पॉलिटिसाइज अगर सिविल सर्वेंट को कर देते हैं तो उसका क्या न्यूट्रल बिहेवियर रहेगा कि नहीं, और दूसरा वही जो स्पॉइल सिस्टम में बात आ जाती है कि अगर आप पॉलिटिसाइज कर देते हैं सिविल सर्वेंट को, तो जिस भी पार्टी से उसकी सिंपथीज हैं वो भी कमिटमेंट से काम करेगा उसके लिए। तो ये इसके दो साइड्स ऑफ द कॉइन्स हैं। यानी अमेरिका में अगर स्पॉइल सिस्टम में 9,000 के करीब लोग अब भी विदाउट गोइंग थ्रू द मेरिट सिस्टम आते हैं, अच्छे होते हैं, स्पेशलिस्ट होते हैं, वेल मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर वेरी वेल qualified for their job, but they are supposed to be working for that particular political party and the government. इसलिए हो सकता है उनकी ज्यादा कमिटमेंट हो, वो बेहतर तरीके से परफॉर्म करें। So political rights of civil servants in Great Britain is promoted at the lower level. They can participate in political activities, not at the high level. US may know. Or the other extreme is France. You can be a member in a way of the party, or at least a sympathizer of a political party. In fact, you can even go and get a political job if you get elected. You can run for elections. So the other extreme. In Japan, again, it is restricted. We have a limited, in our setup, by limited, one can say that theoretically, no, you're not supposed to politicize. But even in Pakistan, we see what is happening. That a coterie of civil servants becomes attached to each political party, maneuvering things all the time. So it's difficult to say that there's no politicization. Perhaps it may even be incorrect to say that it's limited. Maybe it's much more. Then the right to strike. It's not allowed in Great Britain or India or Pakistan. But US, France and Japan, they recognize that. For example, in Pakistan we have this concept of essential services. They definitely can't strike. और फिर जहाँ पे बहुत लेबर इन्वॉल्व होती है वहाँ पर भी ये बात सामने आ जाती है कि लेबर स्ट्राइक करना चाहती है, हालांकि लीगली अलाउड नहीं है। फिर उसके बाद कुछ निगोशिएशंस करनी पड़ती हैं या आर्बिट्रेशन में जाना पड़ता है, जो भी तरीकाकार हो। सो रिक्रूटमेंट ऑफ सिविल सर्वेंट्स का क्या बेसिस है? मेरिट सिस्टम हर जगह। We talked about this in the beginning also. That as far as recruitment to the civil services is concerned, almost all countries in the world now follow a merit system. There might be some lacunas or loopholes within that merit system, but theoretically that system is supposed to be a merit system in which the best person with the highest grades, who has been evaluated as the best out of a big pool of talent, these persons are going to get into the civil service. And this is always through an open competitive exam. Now the form of exams may differ in different countries. Somewhere you may have a number of interviews, somewhere you may have less interviews, somewhere there might be, in some countries, more emphasis on your personal traits and on the ways and means to detect them and to find out those. So the modes may be different, but the openness and everyone being eligible, given the basic qualifications, are the criteria which make up the merit system, an open competitive exam. Now strike is an extreme thing. What about associations? Can the civil servants associate, get together, make small groups and call them associations? And those associations will look after the rights of the civil servants and try to push forward agendas which better their prospects. A kind of a vested interest organization or whatever. Yes, all countries in the world give this right. All the countries in front of us, 6 of them, give this right. This right of association is given to the civil servant. What about the age of retirement? USA में सबसे ज़्यादा 65 से 70 साल नहीं 65 से आप रिटायरमेंट लेना चाहें तो वो शुरू हो जाता है टाइम और 70 साल तक आप गवर्नमेंट जॉब कर सकते हैं अगर चाहें. यूके में भी 65 साल तक आप कर सकते हैं. लेकिन बाकी तमाम 4 दूसरे जो मुल्क हैं पाकिस्तान इंडिया बशमूल जापान और फ्रांस के 60 साल के बाद आपको रिटायर होना है. और एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ जो रिटायरमेंट के बाद जापान में है वो है कि सिविल सर्वेंट्स कैन बी एडजस्टेड एंड डू गेट एडजस्टेड इन द प्राइवेट सेक्टर बाय द गवर्नमेंट. देयर इज अ क्लोज नेटवर्किंग इन cooperation between the private and public sector in Japan. So this is very possible and does happen that at the end of your civil service career you manage to land in the private sector on a good job. This is not rotation, but this is at the end of your career. In France, we know you can politicize, and many many a bureaucrat has become a senior politician and risen to very high ranks above the ministers, even ministers, after retirement from the civil service. So in Japan and in France, we see this rather organized system of looking after the bureaucracy or giving opportunities to the bureaucracy so that their rich experience can be utilized for the good of the nation after retirement. फिर हम देखते हैं कि फाइनेंशियल ईयर एक कैलेंडर ईयर होता है. वी ऑल नो जनवरी में शुरू हुआ और दिसंबर में ख़त्म हो गया. फिर मुख्तलिफ अदारों ने मुख्तलिफ गवर्नमेंट्स ने अपने फाइनेंशियल ईयर फॉर सर्टन रीजंस रखे हुए हैं विच मे और मे नॉट बी द सेम एज द कैलेंडर ईयर. ज़रूरी नहीं कि वो जनवरी से दिसंबर तक हो. फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल आपने पाकिस्तान में ख़ुद देखा होगा कि जुलाई से जून तक हमारा बजट चलता है और उसी तरह बजट मेकिंग प्रोसेस जो है वो हमने इन डिटेल देखा था पाकिस्तान के ज़मन में कि कैसे किस महीने में क्या एक्सरसाइज शुरू होती है और कैसे कल्मिनेट करती है जाके मई जून में. क्योंकि हमारा फाइनेंशियल ईयर जो है वो जुलाई टू जून है. ग्रेट ब्रिटेन का है अप्रैल टू मार्च. यूएसए का हमारी तरह जुलाई टू जून. दिसंबर का ये फ्रांस का कैलेंडर ईयर फॉलो करते हैं. कैलेंडर ईयर एंड द फाइनेंशियल ईयर आर द सेम इन फ्रांस. सो जनवरी टू दिसंबर. इन जापान अप्रैल टू मार्च. अगेन इंडिया अप्रैल टू मार्च. तो ये आपका फाइनेंशियल ईयर अकाउंट्स के लिए, बजटिंग के लिए, ऑडिट के लिए ये एक टर्म ऑफ रेफरेंस है कि आपने इन महीनों का बजट बनाना है, इन महीनों के फिर अकाउंट्स बनेंगे, फिर उनका ऑडिट होगा विद इन दैट फ्रेमवर्क. सो दिस इज द टाइम फ्रेमवर्क फॉर फाइनेंशियल एक्टिविटीज इन फाइनेंशियल अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग. तो ये आपने एक फ्रेमवर्क दे दिया. हर मुल्क ने अपने हिसाब से अपनी कंसिडरेशन सामने रखते हुए एक ख़ास फाइनेंशियल ईयर का पीरियड चूज़ कर लिया. आमतौर पे बजट 2 किस्म के हो सकते हैं. एक सिंगल बजट जिसमें तमाम महकमों का इकट्ठा ही बजट हो, अलग-अलग ना हो, या प्लूरल बजट जहाँ पे हर महकमे का अलग-अलग. हमारे यहाँ फॉर एग्जांपल प्लूरल बजट होता है. जापान में, अमेरिका में, यूके में सिंगल बजट है. अब प्लानिंग किस किस्म की है? पुराने ज़माने में 2 किस्म की प्लानिंग की बात होती थी. एक तो सोशलिस्ट या कम्युनिस्ट और दूसरी कैपिटलिस्ट. अब over a period of time वो कम्युनिस्टिक या रेजिमेंटेड प्लानिंग, जहाँ स्टेट सब कुछ प्लान करती है और स्टेट ही तकरीबन सब कुछ करती है, एक्टिविटी भी, इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी भी, वो तकरीबन ख़त्म हो गई है। अब अगर आपको कहीं इस किस्म की प्लानिंग नज़र आती है तो वो शायद नॉर्थ कोरिया हो या क्यूबा हो। और चीन का जो सिस्टम है वो एक प्लान्ड इकोनॉमी, not really capitalistic, but a lot of government direction in that economy. It's planned. लेकिन जो हम स्टडी कर रहे हैं इस वक्त मुल्क या जिनका हम कंपैरिजन कर रहे हैं, in all those cases we find that कैपिटलिस्टिक सिस्टम है। और कैपिटलिस्टिक सिस्टम बेसिकली मार्केट ड्रिवन होता है, जहां पे मार्केट प्राइसेस फिक्स कर रही है, सप्लाई और डिमांड प्राइसेस फिक्स कर रही है। और ऐसे सिस्टम को रेगुलेट करना इतना आसान नहीं होता, बिकॉज एवरीवन इज आउट टू मेक देयर ओन बक। बट we are following a capitalist system. So is India, so is Japan, so is France. US, of course, is who has been the champion of the capitalist system all along. And vis-a-vis US in the communist days, these were the two big powers who were trying to say that each one was saying that their ideology and their system is better. And then party systems. Two-party system in Great Britain. Then we have a two-party system in US. We know about the Republicans and the Democrats. France has a multi-party system. Japan has a multi-party system. India has a multi-party system. And we know about the BJP now in power, and the National Congress of Indira Gandhi have been in power. And then there's a good following for the Communist Party of India. In Pakistan, we know a third party now, Tehreek-e-Insaf, coming up. So we have the People's Party, we have the PMLN, and we have Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. So multi-party system emerging in our country. In India, for quite some time, perhaps all along, they have had a multi-party system. And a lot of governments which come about in the states of India are coalition governments. So even at the state level and like at our provincial level, there is this impact of a multi-party system. The political order of these countries. In Great Britain, it is liberal democracy. USA, liberal democracy. In France, liberal democracy. In India, for want of a better word, I said mature democracy. I'm not sure how liberal that democracy is. And again, for want of a better word, I called Pakistan a developing democracy. Again, I'm not sure how liberal this democracy is, our democracy is. So, democracy, nevertheless, but where we stand on the spectrum of being liberal is difficult to say. In fact, even the countries which are labeled here as liberal democracies, may be somewhere on that spectrum, but not at the extreme conservative end of the spectrum. And then the type of planning. Is there a central planning machinery or not? Or is all the planning decentralized? In Great Britain, it's interesting. They don't have a central planning machinery as such. which means that the local bodies and the local governments are going to plan for themselves, which is good. The US has what is called the Economic Advisory Council. Again, central. France, centralized in everything. हर चीज में ये तो centralized है, तो इसमें क्यों नहीं होगा? They have a planning commissariat. तो ये कमिश्नरेट जो है, इस पूरे मुल्क के लिए प्लानिंग करता है. Japan has an economic planning agency. We do know in Pakistan we have a planning commission which has been making 5-year plans and 10 years plans and perspective plans and visions of the future, vision 2020, whatever. And they have a planning commission in India also. Central Financial Agency क्या कहलवाती है? और there has to be a central financial agency in every setup. So the Central Finance Agency in Great Britain is the Treasury. And we saw that Treasury had a lot to do with the civil service also, historically speaking, in the UK. In France, we call it the Ministry of Finance and Economy. In Japan, we call it the Ministry of Finance. In India, we call it again the Ministry of Finance, and similarly in Pakistan. So this Central Financial Agency is going to basically regulate the flow of funds, provide resources to the various departments, or maybe even states and provinces, to carry out their day-to-day work and to do development work. As we saw in the case of Pakistan, that there have been national finance commissions and provincial finance commissions set up, which give a formula for the distribution of resources available through certain type of taxes. So this works under the umbrella of the finance division. Similarly, all important projects, development projects, have a great correlation to what is happening in the finance division, because that is where the money is going to come from. What about recruitment? What about the central recruitment agencies in these countries? All of them have it. Names are different. In Great Britain, it is called the Civil Service Commission. In US, the Office of Personnel Management. In France, École Nationale d'Administration. In Japan, National Personnel Authority. Union Public Service Commission, because so many states are there and federation is the union, and the Federal Public Service Commission in Pakistan. So these are, in all cases, fairly independent bodies set up with a view to recruit the best according to a merit system. And some of these, for example, the Office of Personnel Management and the National Personnel Authority and the ENA in France, they do other jobs apart from recruitment. They are not the sole recruiting agencies. They have a mandate to do other things also. Whereas in Pakistan and India, their sole mandate of these organizations is to recruit. And the other functions relating to the civil service and the bureaucracy are performed by other ministries. For example, the Establishment Division in Pakistan. There are central auditing agencies in each and every country we have spoken about. In Great Britain, it's called the Comptroller and Auditor General. In US, the Comptroller General. In France, it's the Court of Accounts. Board of Audit in Japan, Auditor General in Pakistan, Auditor General in India. These are the supreme audit institutions. There is this concept of supreme audit institution of a country. And these organizations, the central auditing agencies we have listed here, are the supreme audit institutions. And we know what they do, how they are the guardians of the funds, and have to ensure that everything is in order, that funds which were meant for a particular purpose have been spent on that and not on other things, and also that they have been spent in accordance with the law, with the rules, with the procedures. So transparency is essential. Judicial review, absent in Great Britain, present in the US, absent in France, present in Japan, present in India, present in Pakistan. Pakistan, we have a very active and independent judiciary which takes on all those cases which involve any such legislation or rules which have been challenged as being ultra vires of the Constitution and declares them so. It also takes up cases in the public interest litigation. It can take suo motu notice of many cases, of any injustice or excesses done, of rights being infringed, freedoms and rights being infringed. So the judicial review is present in a number of countries in one form or another. Or major political parties, we know Conservative and the Labour, and UK, the Democrats and the Republicans, in US, the Communist, Socialist and Union. For New Republic parties in France, Democratic, Japan, Socialist, Democratic, Socialist and Communist parties. In India, Congress, Communist Party of India and the BJP. In Pakistan, of course, PMLN, People's Party and the PTI. And type of franchise, meaning to say who can vote. If everyone can vote, whoever is an adult according to the law of the land, where all adults can vote, it becomes universal adult franchise. So like the merit system in bureaucracy, common in all the countries, this system is the keystone of democracy. Everyone should be able to vote. So in all these countries, we have the system of universal adult franchise. The essential and basic pillar of democracy. What about the central personnel agency, which manages the careers of the civil servants, does the training and the promotion, etc.? Disciplines them, tries to hold them accountable. Now we are talking about in-house accountability. External accountability organizations are also present, but this agency is also supposed to discipline the civil servants, catch wherever misconduct is occurring and accordingly punish the civil servant. So the Treasury and the Office of the Minister for Civil Service does that in UK. In US, it is Office of the Personnel Management who does the recruitment too. Central Civil Service Directorate in France. National, the same agency which does the recruitment, National Personnel Authority in Japan. But in Pakistan and India, you have separate organizations looking after these career aspects of civil servants, and they are the Ministry of Personnel in India and the Establishment Division in Pakistan. And then we look at the governmental organizations regulation. It's the executive in all the cases except in Japan and US, where the legislature is supreme in this case. So In US we see how it is the Senate which has become very powerful. It makes appointments in the sense that they are proposed by the president, but they have to be vetted by the Congress. Again, it has a lot of subcommittees which regulate different government organizations. The Senate subcommittee is a very powerful subcommittee. So in a way it is the legislature under that check and balance theory that is regulating government organizations to some extent. The other country which follows this mode is Japan. Whereas in all the other countries, the executive is supreme when it comes to matters of administration or matters of regulating the government organizations. Now, what is the basic administrative unit in each of these countries? We have a single ministry in all the countries except a system of double executive departments in the US. As far as the Central Training Agency is concerned, it is a civil service college in Britain. US has no central training agency. It's more job-oriented and skills-oriented and specialized, so they go to their specialized training agencies, and also a lot of universities, as we saw, are involved in this effort. Universities have their special units and departments for training public servants. In France, it's the same as the École Nationale d'Administration. Then Institute of Public Administration in Japan, the National Academy of Administration in India, and the Civil Service Academy in Pakistan. So these are the service agencies, training agencies which provide pre-service and post-service training to the civil service. We looked at the rank and the position systems of classification of jobs, how they were based on the responsibilities, and how they serve the specialist or the generalists more. So we find that the rank system is followed in most of the countries we looked at. And they are UK, Pakistan, India, France. So this is where the generalists are more important. And the position system is in Japan and US, which give more importance to the specialized aspect of civil service, specialization aspect of the civil service. इसके बाद आप देखिएगा लोकल गवर्नमेंट के क्या क्या टियर्स हैं. ग्रेट ब्रिटेन में आपके पास काउंटी है, फिर उसमें मेट्रोपॉलिटन, नॉन मेट्रोपॉलिटन हो सकती है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे फिर डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे भी मेट्रोपॉलिटन और नॉन मेट्रोपॉलिटन की डिवीजन है. जब आप नीचे आ जाते हैं, छोटे छोटे गांव हैं, वो भी एक लेवल है. अगर आप लंदन की बात करते हैं तो ग्रेटर लंदन के अलावा बरोज हैं, वो भी लोकल गवर्नमेंट के यूनिट्स हैं. यूएस में काउंटी है, फिर आपकी म्यूनसिपैलिटी और उसकी कमिटीज आ जाती हैं, फिर सिटी आ जाती है, टाउनशिप, विलेजेस आ जाते हैं. और एक कॉन्सेप्ट जो स्पेशल डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स का है, जैसे स्कूल डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स फॉर एग्जांपल, एक ख़ास चीज़ को आपने प्रमोट करने के लिए एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट बना दी, वो भी एक किस्म की लोकल गवर्नमेंट की कॉकटेल फॉर्म है जो यूएस में पाई जाती है. फ्रांस में ऊपर डिपार्टमेंट है सबसे, फिर अरोंडिसमेंट है, फिर कैंटन है और नीचे कम्यून है. सो बट नॉट वेरी वेरी पावरफुल और इंडिपेंडेंट वंस इन फ्रांस और इन जापान फॉर दैट मैटर. प्रीफेक्चर है, फिर सिटी या टाउन है और नीचे विलेज आ जाते हैं. इंडिया में काफ़ी लोकल गवर्नमेंट स्ट्रांग है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट, जिला परिषद परिषद, मंडल पंचायत, ग्राम पंचायत, ये इनकी कमिटीज और काउंसिल्स हैं. And mind you, there are 3 million elected panchayat members in India. So look at the level and the huge nature of the local government set up in this very big democracy of India. And we did look in some detail at Pakistan, about the district and the tehsil and the union, which have there been since long, but have had added powers given to them recently. And then who is the top chief executive? The county chairman in case of Britain, again, county, USA chairman, prefect in case of France, governor in case of Japan, the elected or the administrative officer in case of India, the elected or administrative officer in case of Pakistan, elected one being called the Nazim, and administrative one being called the DCO or the District Coordination Officer. And in India also we generally have an IAS or the Indian Administrative Staff Officer running the district. And now historical basis of recruitment had been patronage system. In Great Britain we saw how all the nobles and the aristocracy used to get into the civil service. In US, whichever party one would bring their people 100% or 90% into the civil service. And in olden times, offices went up for sale in France. You could pay money and get an office, and then perhaps do what you liked. Japan had a patronage system because of the monarchy, which had been very powerful in Japan, and the civil servants were supposed to be an instrument to keep the monarchy in place. So they had to come through a patronage system or a monarchic nominated system. In India, it's a merit system. In Pakistan, it's a merit system. New countries, independence, very, very dissimilar history of administration before the British came. But once the British left, it was merit system in both the countries. And the head of the state, it's the king or the queen, that is the crown in England. It's president in the US, very powerful, they say one of the most powerful persons in the world. But as we saw, powers tempered very much by the Senate. And the president of France, again a quasi-presidential setup with the prime minister there too. But the president is very, very powerful. The emperor in Japan, again ceremonial title, head of state. The president in India, again, not many powers. Pakistan, not many powers. But all government work being done in the name of the president. Otherwise, he is head of the state and has a ceremonial position. Not much more than that. So with this comparison, we complete the revision of our course on comparative public administration. And if we go a step further from this, someday we would like to look at best practices and draw upon them from different countries, from different comparative systems. Because what we did was now a national comparison across nations. This could be done for many more nations and then equated with the results to find out the best practices. And Pakistan needs to borrow a lot of practices, best practices from wherever it can, given the state of affairs that we have in our country as far as the public service is concerned. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the luck. Allah Hafiz.